Now, if you're new to my channel, then you're probably thinking something along the line, I bet my tombstone this is a clickbait. This is impossible, and this guy, this Lance guy, is nothing but a wanker. So if that is what you're thinking, then hand over your tombstone, because this is 100% procedural, okay? The entire thing, the entire Viking shield, everything is a bunch of math. And this entire shield is nothing but a single plane. Now before we begin, I'd like to point out that this is not the best way to model a shield, okay? Because this is just a single texture and this shield does not have any thickness to it. However, during this tutorial you are gonna learn many useful techniques that you may end up using in the future in a different project, okay? And this is gonna be a very fun project. And the wood texture over here is actually not part of this tutorial. The wood is actually procedural, but it's a very complex material and outside the scope of this tutorial. We're going to focus on these plates, these bolts, and the center disc over here. And yeah, let's begin. Delete the default cube and replace with a plane. Now this plane should have a default UV, and we will use this default UV. That will do. And let's create a subdivide modifier and change this to simple. And go to the render tab and change to cycles. And use experimental feature set. Use GPU, and over here we create a new material and scroll down to the settings. And at the displacement, choose displacement and bump. There we go. And in the modifier, we will turn on adaptive, like so. Now let's divide the viewport. And for this viewport, get rid of the tools and the gizmos and stuff. Alright. And for this one, change to shader editor. Now making the wood texture is beyond the scope of this tutorial because the wood texture is very complex and we're not ready for this tutorial. And I'm also actually improving this wood texture and try to simplify it a little bit before making the tutorial. But for now you can use image texture instead of this texture, but yeah, for the sake of keeping everything procedural, I'm going to be using this wood node. And you can see this is the node tree of the wood material, and in here we also have a bunch of even more node groups. So yeah, this is not the time for the wood material, but let's just create the wood texture real quick. So the wood node require a texture coordinate, so we're going to use the UV. And let's render. And this is the wood trunk being cut perpendicular, and we have to rotate this 90 degrees around the x-axis in order to get the wood fiber vertical. So rotate this by 90 degrees, and there we go, we have the wood fiber. And we can increase the curvature of the wood, and maybe increase the size of the wood to 4, and the curvature is a bit too much. Yeah, let's just leave the wood as is for now. And next we need to create the planks of wood. Right now this entire plane is one single piece of wood, and we need multiple pieces of wood, okay? So I'm gonna create a separate XYZ node and create a math node, connect the X over like so, and multiply this by maybe 5. 5 mean 5 planks, and 5, not 6. Alright, so this should be what we have right now. And copy this math node and change this to fraction. Okay, so each of this repeat will be one plank. Okay. Now we will copy this fraction node and change this to a floor, like so. Now we have this segmented gradient, okay, and now we can create a texture and use white noise and set this to 1D, okay. Alright, so this is our white noise. Now maybe 2D, and create a combine XYZ node and connect this over, and now we can change the Y dimension to randomize the white noise, okay. And let's bring everything a bit forward, like so. Alright, now we can multiply this with a multiplier to change the magnitude of the noise, and then we will add this to the Y dimension, okay. So like so, and choose add. Okay, maybe switch the swap the nodes, like so. Now we will combine the XYZ again, and yeah, this will the X axis. Alright, place it here and connect this one to the Y, and now you can see, let's zoom in a little. Alright, there it is. So you can see the wood fiber is not continuous across the planks. So each plank will have a different segment of the wood, okay. So the next thing is to use this 2D noise to randomize the colors for the wood. So for now, all the planks kind of have the same colors, right? So we need to randomize the colors for each plank. So create a mix RGB node and change this to soft light. Where is soft? Okay, there it is. And connect this white noise node to the second color. There we go. Now we have a different color for each plank, like so. And you can increase or decrease the factor to change the contrast of the wood. And if you don't want this randomness, you can change the Y dimension, the Y value here, to randomize the wood some more. There we go. This seems to be good. Okay. Now next, let's create the gaps in between the planks. So create a color ramp node and add a white key at the center and two black keys on the two sides, and this gives us something like this, okay. Now copy this color ramp node and get rid of the right black key and bring the white key to the left, like so. So this will be our gaps between the planks. Alright, so create a vector bump, and I can now connect the height information of the wood over, and we will add the height of the wood with the gap, like so. And as a result, we have something like, let's say, something like this. Alright. Now the bump is a little too much, so we will need to control the strength for the two for the wood details and the gaps separately, okay. So this one is multiply, and let's set this to 0.001, and let's see, I think yeah, this one is good. And for the gap, let's set this to maybe 0.01. Yeah, this will do. Alright, now we have different planks for the shield, and this is the end of the wood texture, and we will not touch the wood texture anymore unless we want some fine artistic control. Now maybe let's change this a little, and maybe create another mix node, okay, and let's put the grain. So this is the wood grain, okay. So the dark grain, let's say the dark grain should be more rough, and the bright grain will be less rough, okay. So create two value nodes. Okay, this will be our maximum roughness and this will be our minimum roughness. So for the maximum roughness, let's set this to 0.7, and for the minimum roughness, let's set this to 0.3. Okay, so we have something like this. Okay, and let's see the wood texture at an angle. I think the strength of the wood details is still too much, so 0.5 maybe, and increase this roughness to 0.4 maybe. Alright, so let's where is the light? Let's bring the light down on the surface a bit, and maybe lower the intensity of the light. And maybe this wood is too glossy. We forgot to actually connect the roughness. Yeah, this will do. And you can see this, we have a very nice wood texture. So this wood texture is procedural, but it's beyond the scope of our tutorial. But you can use these nodes to randomize your image textures just as good. So this is the end of the wood. Let's move on to make the metal. Okay, so copy this principal material, shader, and put in maybe just some random noises. So let's create the space warp node real quick. Alright, so this is the space warp node, and next let's create a nice maybe Voronoi. Yeah, let's use the Voronoi node. Maybe increase the scale a bit, and we can create a maybe color ramp node and invert the color like so. Alright, we will use this to control the roughness for the metal. Okay, so create a mix RGB node and put this into the factor input and create two values node. There we go. And put this into the roughness. Alright, let's say this will be 0.3 and this will be 0.7. We have something like this. Okay, and let's see, we have a bit of variations to the roughness. Okay, and copy this mix node, and again let's mix the color for the metal. So this will be something dark, or maybe, yeah, let's set it that way. There we go. I think the contrast is a bit too much, so maybe like that. Yeah, let's just leave it that way. Increase this to metal. I think the roughness is a bit too much contrast. Maybe, yeah, this will do. Okay. Alright, now mix these together, and we have the first slot is the wood and the second slot is the metal. Okay, now we will create the mask to mix the wood and the metal. Okay, let's just copy the UV node up here so that we have some nice and clean node tree. Okay, let's create a vector math node and connect the UV map over and subtract this by 0.5 originally the center of the UV space is down here. By subtracting 0.5, I mean this should be 0, okay. Now subtracting 0.5 from x and y will bring the UV space to the center of the plane, like so. And now we can create another vector math node and change this to length. Alright, let's see. So now we have a nice gradient from 0 to 0.5 out here, and I want the value out here to be 1, so I'm gonna multiply this by 2. So now the value out here is 1, and the value up here is the square root of 2. Okay. Now create a math node and change this to maybe less than 1. Now we have a very circular mask. So this will be our alpha mask. So create another mix shader node, and mix this with a transparent node, like so, and connect this mask over, like so. Alright, now we have a very nice round shield. Okay, maybe bring the light a bit above. So create another vector math node, and this time choose absolute. This gives us something like this, okay. And we will separate x, y, z and create a math node, connect x and y in, and change this to maximum. We have something like this, okay. And now we can create a color ramp node, and let's bring down the white key to the left. Now we have this nice square, like so, and you can bring up the white key to make something like this, okay. We have a very short transition from white to black, like so. Okay, if we rotate this texture coordinate, create a mapping node, okay, and connect this multiply by 2 node in here, like so, and connect this one over. And if we rotate around the z-axis by 45 degrees, we have something like this, a diamond shape. Okay, and let's bring this to the side a bit. Let's set all these to 0, and now we can bring this to the side like this, okay, and rotate this 45 degrees to have a diamond shape. Okay, so this is just one blade. How do we create a bunch of blades around the edge of the shield? And to do that, we need some radial segmentation for the shield. Okay, so first we need to calculate arc pi. Okay, so create a math node and change this to arcsine and set this to 1. This will spit out a value that is half pi. And if we multiply this value by 2, we have pi. And if we multiply this again with 2, we have 2 pi, okay, which is 360 degree, and this is 180 degree. This is 90 degree, okay. So we will create a value node, and this one will be the number of segments. There we go. So let's say we want 6 segments, alright. However, it can be 6.1, which is not good. So we need a way to force this into integer. Okay, so create a math node and connect the segment over and choose floor. This will force the number down to 6. Okay, so now that we have the segments, the next thing we need to do is to rotate the texture coordinate by half a segment. Okay, so suppose we have 6 segments, so that means each segment is 60 degree, right? So we will rotate this by 30 degree. So the rotation is 180 degree divided by the number of segments. This will be the angle of half a segment. Okay. So the next thing to do is to rotate this texture coordinate by this unit, I mean this amount. Okay. So create a mapping node and connect this one to the vector input, and create a combine XYZ node and connect this to the Z dimension and connect this to the rotation. Okay. Now the rotation in here, the values in here are in degree unit, but the values you put in this socket has to be in radian unit. Okay. Now let's see what we got. And we got nothing, because we have to set this to divide, not multiply. Okay. So now this is, you can see that the rotation is exactly 30 degree. So let's try 4, which means it rotates 45 degrees. Okay. So now it's actually working. Let's set this to maybe 8. Alright. Now we will create a texture and a gradient texture. There we go. And set this to radial. Now the radial texture will create a linear gradient from 0 degree to 360 degree, like so. And we will cut this into this number of segment, which is 8 at the moment. To do that, create a math node. There we go. And multiply by the number of segment. There we go. And let's create a dot, like so. Now copy this math node and change this to floor, like so. And then we divide this by the number of segments. Okay, so this is 0 and this is something close to 1. Alright, and now we will multiply this by 2 pi. There we go. Multiply. So this is 0 and this is something close to 2 pi. We will not have 2 pi value because it will be the same as 0. Okay. Now we will use this to rotate our texture coordinate. Let's bring this one down because we will not use this anymore. Alright. We will use this as the angle of rotation for our original texture coordinate, this one. So create yet another mapping node and create a combine XYZ node and put this in the Z dimension, I mean Z value, and connect this to the rotation. Now this is wrong because we need to use the negative values of these values. Okay, so create another multiply node and multiply by -1. There we go. And connect this to the Z value. Okay, now we have something like this. Okay, and let's see, we have 8 blades around the edge of our shield, and we can increase this to increase the number of blade. Alright, and now we can, where is the, here, we can change this gradient to change the size of the blades. Okay, now let's set this to 1 so that the blade is exactly on the side of the shield. Okay, something like that. And let's see, let's just put this into the factor input of the mix, and we don't want this gradual change, so let's say create a math node and set this to maybe greater than, and set this to 0, like so. Alright, now we have something like this. Alright, So we have very nice blades around our wood shield. Now let's use this as the bump for these blades. Okay, so create a bump node and connect this one to the height. There we go. And let's bring this all the way down here and connect this to the normal of the metal. And we can see that the bump is too strong, so let's set this to 0.1 for now, maybe 0.01. Yeah, that one will do. Maybe not, maybe it works. So let's go up here and make the transition a little shorter. And we have something wrong over here, which is very bad. Now that might be because of the precision problem of the color ramp node. The color ramp node is not very precise, so you might want to use the map range node instead. So lowering the from max value is the equivalent of lowering the white key, and increasing the from min value is the equivalent of increasing the black key. I mean, moving the black key to the right. Okay, so connect this one over, and let's say maybe connect this one over, and let's set the values for now. Let's say something like this. Okay, so the black key is 1.68, so copy this one here, and the white key is 1.4. Copy this over here, and there we go. Alright, you can see the problem with precision is now gone. So let's delete that color ramp node. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay, now we need to group the segmentation nodes into a single node group so that we can reuse these nodes later. Okay, so group these wires like so, and let's select all these nodes and Control G to group, and let's connect this one over here and get rid of the value node. And this one is vector, this one is segment number, and let's set the default values. This will be 6, this should be 0, and vector shouldn't have any default value. Okay, and is there anything else we want to okay. Alright, now name this one segment and set this to 6. There we go.